Right, we continue getting you reaction following the news of the passing of Pravin Gordhan. We are now joined by CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Alan Mukoki. Mr. Mukoki, thank you so much for your time this hour. So let's get the Chamber's reaction to the news of the Minister Gordhan's passing.
Well, yeah, no, so we all, good morning to you and your listeners as well. I mean, we are saddened to hear of his passing. Former Minister Gordhan was one of those ministers that we had to have a lot of engagement with. As you'd recall, that he's also the former SARS commissioner. So over the years, he's had a lot to do with engaging with business. And in our engagements with him, we found him, number one, to be very accessible. And secondly, he brought with him at least an intellect to the engagements and to the discussions that will be taking place. Business and government are not always agreeing, as you know. It's a relationship that is based largely on two parts of society that want different things, even though we always sometimes believe that the ultimate objective is the same, but the way and the road to get to that ultimate objective is always very different. But we found that in our engagements, he always kept it very professional, even where we disagreed. He brought a level of robustness in the debates that we would have with him. He also is one of the few ministers who would be almost available when we call on him to come and meet other business people or to come and present at any of our engagements, high-profile events, or to be a speaker. His office was always running a very tight show. So I think that the only thing we can say, of course, is to say condolences to his family, condolences to his friends, his associates, his colleagues, and in particular to his political home, the African National Congress, as well as the broad mass democratic movement. As we all know, that he's been engaged as a political activist since the days of the UDF and probably even prior to those particular years. But publicly, I think we started to know more of him from the UDF days until, of course, he stepped out of politics to retire very recently. So may his soul rest in peace.
And just how will Minister Gordhan's legacy impact the business community at large?
Well, as I said, he was always approachable. We had very robust engagements with him. As you recall, he was a man who was very forthright, very transparent. We may have disagreed on many because he wasn't representing himself. He wasn't representing himself as an individual. He represented his political party and the policies of his own government. So to that extent, it was never anything personal. It was always him representing a particular significant sector within what his own political party was trying to do. So he came in during very, very difficult times. I would say maybe during the SARS years, things were a lot more, I would think, less complex than when he came in as the finance minister and when he came in as twice and then he came in again as the Department of Public Enterprises minister. So those are not particularly the easiest, as the evidence is there now. The economy hasn't really grown to create the jobs that we all thought they would be there. Unemployment, as we always say, the issues relating to poverty, inequality are still there because we all, as society, have been grappling with those issues. It's not him alone. We're all part of the same system. So I would say that he came in at one of the most volatile, most complex periods of South Africa's economic development. And during the time of the public enterprises, he also came in at a time when there were lots of difficulties and problems, especially in governance in the SOE sector. And to that extent, of course, we've issued our own statements many times, being very critical of cabinet decisions and in terms of the manner in which cabinet itself as a whole tended to appoint and recruit senior executives to SOEs as well as board members, because we never thought they brought with them a level of expertise or skill, because they themselves would not have worked as senior corporate executives in leadership positions. So to that extent, I think that he tried to do the best that he could under very, very difficult circumstances.
And I don't know, Mr. Mukoki, if top of mind, you are able to think of specific policies or initiatives implemented by Minister Gordhan that benefited the business sector in particular.
Well, I think this question comes up all the time to say a minister implemented. I don't think that ministers implement. I think that ministers follow the policy of the party or the governing, the ruling party at a particular time. I think that there's no individual policy anyway. But there were quite a number of, in other words, all the policies that the ANC would say we implemented during his time. He would have been part of that particular system. The work that was done clearly between the public enterprises together with business, a number of the initiatives and joint venture approaches in terms of resolving the issues around rail, is resolving the issues around the security as it relates to, disappearing rail stock and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be somewhat a positive outcome of what would have happened. We also found that when he was finance minister, in terms of discussing quite a number of the significant regulatory issues around, taxes, etc., he was an open-minded person, so he met with us. As I said, we don't have to agree, but he brought with him the honesty and the truth and the diligence into the debating process in terms of resolving those issues. So I would think that without him, in terms of his own style, it would have been much more difficult. But I think that we've been lucky in a sense, I think, with finance ministers in South Africa. I would think from the days of Trevor Manuel, Tito Mboweni, Pravin himself, that we've tended to find people there who were very reasonable, who were willing to make business, who were very forward-looking in terms of wanting to solve the problems. We may disagree on policies, but in the final analysis, they brought a lot of honesty, and Pravin was foremost in all of that.
And before we let you go, let's just talk about the legacy that he leaves behind and how he will be remembered.
Look, I think that his legacy can't be separated from the legacy of the ANC and the legacy of the government. And as I said earlier on, it's been a very difficult period. We haven't achieved the things that we could. Yes, there are successes. There have been RGP homes that will be built. There are, social grants that are being paid. There have been some changes, even though they have not yet had the significant results that you would have wanted in terms of education, in terms of putting together money for kids, and things like that. But we haven't necessarily built the competences and the skills to operate in a global economy. So I would think that from that particular point of view, you can't decouple his own legacy from that of his own organization that he represented and that he was a core member of. So hopefully in the future, those opportunities would not be wasted by those who come after him, and they would build on the work that he would have done.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. That is, of course, Mr. Alan Mukoki, who is the CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thanks very much indeed for your reflections.